It's so great to see everybody here in the chat on a holiday. Leave a like if you could for your boys, Johnny, Bo, and Damon Dog. We would greatly appreciate it. Like we appreciate all of you. And while we're taking this news in stride as it relates to Houston's pick, we also think it's time to be creative. And I'd asked Brad Spielberger, I think, and a couple other people, Trevor Sikkema, like if this keeps getting pushed down, like what are the chances that this pick gets moved for a veteran? And while that's not my initial intent, and I don't think it's the Cardinals' intent either, we don't want to see this team replicate a lot of Steve Keim's miscues of the past. I mean, now you're looking at 26 to 32. You got to at least have the conversation, especially if you can upgrade significantly. So what we've done, Bo, is we've put together a small list. This isn't
Mm-hmm.
everybody of who's going to be available. And hell, these players may not be available, but these are the commonly discussed players right now that could be moved for draft compensation. And come to find out, all positions of need for the Arizona Cardinals. Damon Dog, let's see the list. Would you trade the 26th pick for one of these four players? T. Higgins, wide receiver, Cincinnati. How about Derek Brown, the stud defensive lineman, formerly of Auburn of Carolina? And guess what? They've got another star defensive lineman in Brian Burns. Both of those guys are 25. Higgins is 24. And then Josh Allen, the pass rusher from Jacksonville, he's 26, Bo. Looking at this list right now, number one, what do you think of these four targets potentially? And am I missing anybody from this list?
I mean, we really don't know what the trade market's going to develop into. You see a lot of upset Dallas Cowboys players, and we'll see if that they want to get on board potentially with whoever could potentially take over in Big D, or what's going to happen as far as this coaching carousel goes, and we'll see. Buffalo's holding on right now against Pittsburgh, but we'll if their season ends before the Super Bowl, is a guy like Stephon Diggs going to become available? Or I saw Garrett Wilson, his name already bandied about in the chat, like he's unhappy, but I'm sure at some point he'll want to play with Aaron Rodgers a little bit more than just 4 plays like this season. But I like that. I really like 3 of the 4. The only reason I wouldn't really throw up Derek Brown in there, the interior defensive
Wow.
lineman,
Not a
is
fan.
just I'm a fan. I think he's been a strong player the last couple seasons. But I think when you're going to trade an asset like that, premium position, right? Those edge rushers in Allen and Burns, I think that those guys are very worthy of that. And I'm not saying like I wouldn't like at least entertain it for Derek Brown. I just think that you really need to get into really trading your assets for premium positions. Don't pull off a deal, like it wouldn't be like Jamal Adams was an atrocious deal, but just give up value for a position that isn't, viewed as premium and important in this day and age NFL.
It's where you and I are going to disagree. I just look at this situation in defensive line and defensive tackle. I think it's been dire for some time. And I think the teams that wanted to run the ball and the Cardinals could. And he's gotten better as he's progressed. And while I don't know if he warranted a top 10 selection, remember he went right before the Cardinals took Isaiah Simmons. He's been much better than I thought. And I look at that, and the only reason I put him on there is it. So there was this a hilarious graphic going around on Twitter, and it had 4 segments, 4 columns, right? And it said non-contenders with a bunch of resources, contenders with resources, contenders without resources, and then basically like in the bottom left-hand corner, bad teams with no resources. And it was Carolina like by themselves. And it's just hilarious. And the Cardinals were a bad team with resources, right? And I looked
Yeah.
at that and I'm just like, I don't know if Derek Brown's going to be available. He's not. He's got 1 year left on his contract. Like, I just feel like if you're Carolina and you're going all in for Bryce Young and they're going to hire an offensive coach, probably like those 2 guys, I feel like can be had and could really help you. And I don't know if it would take pick 26 to get Derek Brown. This is a completely different regime, ownership group that drafted him. Multiple coaches and GMs have come and gone. So but he's a really, really good player that I would love for. I mean, he's 25. So you figure, okay, 3 to 5 years minimum that you're going to get quality production, the best years of his career. But I understand because it's not a sexy name. And goodness, the Cardinals have been plagued by bad trades before. So Burns, a Josh Allen, I would probably put Burns and Josh Allen over everybody. I think T. Higgins, to me, like a lot of people in the chat are saying, draft a receiver. I'm inclined to say the same thing. The more that we study this draft class, of course, you want the sure thing. And Higgins is only 24 years old. But I mean, if you do your homework, you ought to make Malik Neighbors or Rome Odunze the player that T. Higgins is. Because T. Higgins, he's a good player, but he's still number 2 to Jamar Chase. He's still like a fringe 1,000-yard receiver. Like, if you can't find that in this class, then you shouldn't be a general manager. So all that to say, like, the more I think about it, unless there's a name that checks every box, I think they're better off sticking and picking. I think you're better off, maybe if you want to reach slightly for a defensive tackle there, do it. If there's a guy that's a fringe first rounder and you love him at 26, take him. Hell, the kid out of Michigan, if he has a great offseason, a great draft season, it's just like that probably makes more sense. And again, we're in a position now, we're splitting hairs, but 21 to 26, I mean, you're all options have to be on the table, but I still think the best course of action is to draft somebody.
And that's where I think you start to see some value on some of these defensive players in this draft, where, if it's higher than that, you would get it caught into the debate, the conversation of were they worthy of the selection and where you were picking. Like 26, like you could take the best defensive player on the board. And I think at that point, the draft has evened out between those sides of the football, where I think if you're in the top 15, there are probably 3 to 4 defensive players may be deemed worthy to be in the top 15, but man, are we so far away from that? But these guys, obviously, everybody on this entire list is way better than what you could project the 26th overall pick to be, right? And then you get into, okay, what else would it cost? Derek Brown is under contract, I think, through next season. You've got Brian Burns, who would probably be, they would tag him, right, to control him beyond this and going into this offseason. So, he would have a pretty hefty contract going into next season. And then same thing goes for T. Higgins, like Brad Spielberger, pointed out to us, like the Bengals aren't just going to let him walk. They'll tag him and then pull off a deal or pull off an extension. Yeah. So it's all complicated, but and then you get hesitant because of the Hollywood deal, because you traded for a guy.
Leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
Leaves a bad, yeah. And it was just about the same, like 23, 26, about the same point right there. It's just, I think that the difference really would be, especially with guys like the pass rushers, it's absolute need. Well, all those players are positions of need, but premium position players.